Hello, welcome. I'm Haleen, and I want to get down here and put my thoughts on the record to the ethos. I watched that Belle Collective Birmingham reunion. The ladies look good. I mean, nobody. Only thing that I can remember about the fashion was Tiffany hairdo. Whatever she had on top of her head was not giving what she thought it was giving. So let me get into the reunion. It starts off, Stormy is already on the couch with that barking dog. And as soon as Carlos come into the set, the dog start barking and Stormy claim it's because of the clapping. It's hard to take that excuse when you use that your dog never did that before with Tiffany and said that it was a litmus for him testing energy. All of a sudden, it ain't him testing Carlos' energy. I'm not buying. But anyway, so everybody around the couch and they sit down. And so as they go around the couch, I realized that so Carlos talked to Amber and asked her, do she got smoke for anybody on that couch that she was sitting on? She was like, nah, not on this couch, but that couch. And Fumi started to make faces as if she was a hit dog and she felt the way. So Fumi fumes and it continues and then had a little back and forth with the jokes about the subject. But I don't even think Amber's ire was for Fumi. I think she was set on Kayla. But anywho. And also I thought Fumi also was preempting the perception that she knew that Tiffany thought that they were perceived as Stormy's minions, and so Amber may have thought the same and may have been a part of that. But let me keep going. So they showed footage, unseen footage around Birmingham or whatever, and they asked Fumi about the fashions in Birmingham. Fumi started talking about the fashions in the South and how the South get down. Girl, whatever. Anyway, she took it to redirect it to one of the segments that was shown where Tiffany said something about influencers and how they all kind of mimic each other and copy something Tiffany said. And Fumi on the couch took that as an offense and was like a hit dog holler and said that was shade from Tiffany. And then they were talking about how Stormy had the live. They did a video with Stormy doing her live and all that came with it. And then they showed Tiffany and her reaction in the video. And they settled on the comment of Tiffany discussing they giving free labor. They asked Amber, did she think that they gave free labor? And she was like, nah, it's all in context and perception. I mean, yes, she got free labor, but they ain't nobody to get free labor from. Yes, she got Martell down there, but she called Martell specifically because she knew Martell had a following. We don't know y'all. So y'all being on that platform, if anybody was swayed by y'all notoriety, it probably would have been very selected audience, not us, the nation. But anyway, going forward, Amber got her 23 eggs. Carlo makes advice. So they discuss how she gonna go about fertilizing these eggs. She looking for a man. And Amber said she fears opening up her life for it to be crushed in so many words. And Carlos was like, you got to make room. So I felt Amber's fears when she was describing them. Carlos saying you got to make room for a man or what you want. I understood that as well. But he sound like a major pick me because he going to say, oh, yeah, you going to make room for a man and then sell that house. And then Amber said, no, rent the house. And then Carlos goes, and then y'all have money. Girl, get the fuck out of here, Carlos. She has money. It's her home. She built it. Anywho, then they go and ask for me about her house and offers on her home. I don't care. Moving on. She oh, this is the point that I realized. So that conversation unfolds about her and her finances. And obviously, she takes pride in not knowing shit about what's going on in her life concerning her utilities, her bills, her mortgage, anything. Her husband is the one in charge of all of that, and he supposedly gives her an allowance. And if she overgoes that allowance, which she does, she says in a week, she then uses her charge card. But the reality of that commentary is you can be left in the dark, particularly in this system of the United States, about whatever he's doing in your name. He can be signing documents and using your social security because you are married and you don't know and you take pride in not knowing. And heard that Wendy said the same thing down there to Real Housewives of Potomac. And that didn't equate to me as someone who is supposed to be an educated woman. You are abdicating the responsibility of the knowledge of your financial health to somebody that you're married to, and then come to find out y'all running schemes down there. And when Fumi said that, I immediately thought of Wendy and Teresa Judice. And for y'all to portray this and project, especially Wendy and Fumi, projecting this educated sense of being to the public, but you walk around willfully unaware of what's going on financially in your life, and you live at the will of your husband. I understand love and trust, but that's negligence. Anywho, they didn't ask Stormy about what she thought about it, and Stormy essentially was like, to each his own, and she don't do that. And then they asked about, well, you bring home the bread, and Stormy's like, no, essentially Courtney helped me build this and he inspired me in so many words. Then Tiffany was asked about wanting more kids, but her husband wants a vasectomy. And he she was asked, well, has he gotten one already? And she said, no, but he is scheduled to get one. And she was asked, how do you feel about it? And she's like, yeah, I'm hurt because I want one thing. And he's made up his mind. And you have to learn a life with ulterior desires. Partner background, life is life. And it's the summertime on the way. Summertime's afoot. So anyway, back to the Belle Collective, Birmingham. So Kayla and her ditziness, she was asked about, pardon me, her ditziness. And Amber wasn't feeling it. So Amber wasn't feeling Kayla at all. And Kayla feel like it's all a scheme that Todd cooked up to bring to us with the bullshit, because she then lends us 3 receipts supposedly to prove that Amber always been cool with her, and those receipts were duds. They flopped because in every instance Amber had a logical reason why those things were occurring, and it ended where, like, you gave me cake and took a picture with me at an event that you invited me to, or something to that effect. And Amber was like, it's an event, I'm not finna turn up at my at an event, I'm finna be handle you with grace. And Kayla was like, from her perception, that wasn't it. But long and short of it, I'm on Amber's side because I feel like what gives is what Portia gives. Oh yeah, one of the excuses was her boobs. This is the thing. So Kayla get the second excuse she gave, because the last excuse was her giving her cake and taking a picture. Second excuse was something about like her touching boobs, and her and touching something, and then Amber and Carlos at the same time said, "What?" Touching something like that. Both of them was confused, like, where is this coming from? And it was so authentic to the point where, like, bitch, you lying. Anywho, so Amber said that Kayla was stoking the flames amongst her fan base with a comment to tell her comment section to ride on her ops, situating herself as her ops and the cast members, certain members of the cast as her ops. And she says in the she says, "No, I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying like no ride for me in the comments." Mommy was asked, you know, do you think Kayla was right outright? And then, Stormy gives some soliloquy and was called out for being indirect. And then once readdressed the question, like, do you think she was wrong for whoop the whoop? And then Stormy asked, well, what did you mean by the comment? And then Kayla explained herself. And then Stormy goes, I guess she don't, she could do what she wanted, whatever. I just felt like that's not one of the point. It might be a point of the contention for Amber because it's the straw that broke the camel's back. But I don't think for the viewing audience is that deep for us. But I can get and Kayla playing ditzy so often that it just wears on you. And the way Stormy is jumping to her heights for somebody that has been alluded to has been a superficial friend for the most of the time they've known each other, as opposed to being direct with Amber. I don't know. I don't. Stormy came off this season to me, but anyway, Tiffany was instigating that whole thing when Stormy was brought in a conversation. Then Amber thinks that Kayla is one of Stormy's minions, and they describe where Kayla says something about she calls Stormy 1,000 times. She don't care if she calls Stormy 1,000 times. As long as she get one response, she knows Stormy love her. Some shit like that. It does scream thirsty, but whatever. Stormy sends her on a mission was one of the complaints from, I believe, Tiffany. Tiffany felt as though, even though she was the one who invited Kayla to the event, it's not as if Kayla wasn't at that meeting with the friends or with her and her friends meeting up with some mission on behalf of her friend Stormy and having some already predetermined opinion about what already had transpired before they got there. So to then immediately after all was said and done, go run to Stormy and tell her, you couldn't even wait to get in your car to tell her. You standing right outside of where y'all eating at to go run tell that. It does like you want to look like you on a mission. But anyway, Tiffany explained how Kayla's response seemed to her. Um, and then she really thought she was just there to eat and be friends. Um, she apologized to Kayla at the reunion because Kayla explained some reasoning that it seemed like she sat on for a while to come back to us with the bullshit to tell us about how I know how it looked, but whoop the whoop, and it sounded reasonable enough for Tiffany to then apologize accept her at her word. I still believe what the initial instinct told you, Tiffany, is the right and exact way that Kayla was trying to handle you at that breakfast concerning that dumbass mop. Now, they to bring up this mop again, the segment with the mop. So with the mop, Tiff messed up game night. So Tiff said in a junket on the video talking about the mop, she told them they messed up game night. I don't think Tiffany was gracious as a host herself. Even if they messed it up, I don't think it's that deep enough to be. That's something you vent to your homies about, not to like some strangers who don't give a fuck about it anyway. And then the mop joke was corny and she meant it, and so it wasn't in good taste. And so Stormy's offense is understandable. But how Stormy went about her offense, I felt as though she already had it out for Tiffany from the get go, and she just needed one reason. Just like at her dinner, they invited them to her house to be at. She just needed one reason to be upset and just blow it out so she can be a nemesis to this girl. And the girl is, I mean, not backing down. So anyway, Stormy just be talking. So Stormy said that she just didn't like the comments concerning the mob. And Tiffany said, asked, then when did you tell me about, like, you didn't say anything. And that point that Tiffany had, Stormy goes on this long soliloquy. You could tell she been over there at Love and Marriage Huntsville, because like Maurice and Marceau and the rest of them, and Melody and the rest of them, she goes on this deflection, long soliloquy that has nothing to do with the price of tea in China to make us feel what she feel and sit to herself. But it's not to get to the point of the matter. But back to the mop. Tiffany was asked, when did you part back to the mop, Stormy deflects. And then Carlos asks, don't you wish you could just quickly address the mop? And then again, Stormy cannot be wrong. She can't get no give. So Stormy essentially goes, nah, because I had $1 million event on my mind and I couldn't address that. Like, girl, it wasn't that deep that this was going to obstruct your $1 million event, that you couldn't tell a girl, can't you chill on that mop joke? I understand where you coming from as far as service, but you trying to be jokey joke and trying to diminish my being and trying to make me out to be a slave instead of a servant. Or whatever you felt about the comment, whatever. You could have addressed it. It wasn't gonna be that deep. You not addressing it is what made it deeper than what it had to be. But you needed to be that deep because you didn't want her around, because you had decided you ain't like her before the comment, and the comment just validated your bias. Anyway, so Stormy then um Tiffany said she then Tiffany um acknowledged, because they keep bringing up, don't you think you should apologize and whoop de whoop? And Tiffany did apologize, and she did a good apology the first time when nobody was looking. And that's my problem, and that's how Stormy is playing it. When nobody was looking at in front of that Civil Rights Museum, Stormy I mean Tiffany gave a non if you offended type apology. She just said, if I've offended you, I have whatever, like, she gave a good, clean apology. It's not until Stormy get in front of everybody that she want to keep rehashing. It's like Stormy made this her storyline. It was obnoxious. Anywho, so Stormy deflects again from that point that she apologized, and then talk to her friends about, oh, then by doing all that deflection, Tiffany brought up the point with Stormy, like, because Stormy kept dropping, like, I had $1 million thing on my mind, live stream on my mind. It was $1 million. She kept bringing up the money. So, in this regard, Tiffany goes, who are you without the money? And then Stormy goes, you the one keep bringing out my money. And though she may have been right in previous regards, whereas, like Tiffany acknowledged, I talked about your money with my friend, and that was a private moment with my friend. When I came to you, I addressed you directly about the situation, and then again, Stormy deflects, and then brings up the mop, and then Tiffany makes some lame ass joke about how pressed Stormy is about the mop. She's so pressed that her hair look like the mop today. And it's like, girl, womp womp, you flopped. So next, Fumi says stop, because it was the insult about the mop hair joke that that Tiffany made. So Fumi then interjects to say, stop with the insults. My thing is, when Tiffany did that little lame ass womp womp insult joke, here come you throwing on a cape for Stormy. But when all them bitches and hoes was being dropped and at Tiffany by Stormy, didn't nobody throw on no cape and go, come on, stop, enough with the insults, Stormy. Nobody did that. That's elucidating Tiffany's point that I wasn't really paying attention to like that. But now that I'm watching, it's like, now that you say something, and the way Fumi was so pressed about the notion of being Stormy's minion, but yet and still you validate the action of minion behavior while you being pressed by being called one, it's, you're one. So, anywho, so Netta says, what did, oh yeah, so they bring up the point that Stormy never addressed directly to Tiffany when she asked, how have I offended you? And instead of that, well, what did Sonata say? And so, in bringing that up, Stormy then cooked up like Kayla some shit for the reunion to say why it makes sense to her, why she didn't just directly address why she was offended. She wanted to know what Sonetta said. And essentially she said, I didn't want to hear the telephone, and the reason why through somebody else, I wanted to hear what was said. Like, girl, the fuck does that matter? It's just like Kayla down there eating with her and a friend. What does it matter what was said? You not a part of it. I don't want to go into it. And if I have to address it, you're not even somebody who is concerned. I'm concerned with addressing it with. Let's just get past it. Let's build something outside of this freaking mop. But anywho, Stormy cooked up some bullshit too. And it didn't make, I mean, I guess it made sense to her, but to the person who isn't her, it doesn't make sense, because if you are offended and you want to get this offense settled, tell me exactly where it hurts so I can address the hurt with you. Instead of telling me, ask Sonetta where it hurt. Where did Sonetta say it hurted at? Girl, if you don't get out of my face with the bullshit. Anyway, yeah, to that point, like I said, Stormy had this long ass speech, loving marriage, Huntsville speech. Anyway, they brought out the mop, corny. Kayla wanted a mop, glam, corny. Um, Stormy, how? They showed it, control, money. So Storm, they asked Amber, because Amber was in the middle and that was being addressed. And this is my thing with Stormy. Stormy said Amber could have handled it better because she know them, and she could have probably, if she was more assertive and more active, she could have probably hashed it out between the two of them. That's not her responsibility, and to hold her to that was, especially during the time of her IVF, is dismissive and very self-centered. Stormy, like, who the fuck do you think you are? But yeah, Amber says, yeah, you right, you a lame, G. Anywho, Amber goes, yeah, I agree, Stormy should have kicked her out if she felt some way in her home. She has every right to kick out anybody she feels like in her home. And I agree with that. But she didn't feel like it was right for her to cuss her out and all that. So they go back to this event about how Stormy and Amber, like I said, Stormy said Amber could have resolved it. Bitch, get the fuck out of here. Like, this is weird. How you claim you wanted to resolve it at your home. This woman really loved the both of y'all. And she like extra hormonal because of the IVF treatment. And here you are trying to put at her feet your inane and insane problem with this child that could have been handled day one. But anywho, Tiffany apologized, asked why Stormy didn't step in, but Stormy, oh yeah, so they rehashed going in front of the Civil Rights Museum and how the friend of Stormy said something to the effect of, why would you ask $1 million CEO to mop? And I get her friend Chanel said that. Like, it's beneath you. Why, how dare you ask a millionaire to grab a mop? I understood Tiffany's perception of that point he was making. Like, and who the fuck? She's a Belle collective. If I'm joking, get a mop. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not saying I agree with Tiffany's joke, but the way y'all handling this joke made me go, I don't like the way y'all rebuttaling it. So Tiffany say, why didn't you step in to handle the way she apologized for laying the blame of that things being said at her feet when it actually was Chanel saying certain things. And so Tiffany woman up and apologized. And Stormy, the whole time Stormy was like dismissing Tiffany, ignoring her, talking down to her, whatever. So Tiffany then goes, but why do you didn't, after she apologized, like, why you ain't step up? Not saying Stormy had to step up. I don't agree with that. But Stormy go, I don't have to do what you want me to do. And I'm thinking, as soon as she said that, I'm going, and vice versa. What are you asking Tiffany to do then? So Tiffany go, and me too. Like, I don't gotta do what you. And that's my point. Like, y'all see it for Stormy, and then, but y'all don't see it's the same for Tiffany. It's the same thing. Anyhow, Stormy's million, the next segment. All say they ain't her minions. Of course they ain't. When asked, Fumi was most bothered by the notion, and Stormy tries to interject, and Tiffany like be quiet because she talking about Stormy Millions, and then everybody felt like, oh no, no, don't say be quiet. Now watch when Tiffany said to Stormy that whack ass mop hair joke. Oh no, no insults. When Tiffany says, be quiet. Oh no, no. Oh, oh. Now, it's nitpicky. Anyway, and Stormy is being nitpicky. So she goes, oh, don't do that. So Tiffany like feeling attacked. And so she stopped. And she makes a valid point. Like, y'all and had no regard for me when Stormy was calling me bitches and hoes. But I say, be quiet in this World War III in this Mickey Ficky. Stop playing. So anyway, they have the last segment with the Last Supper. And I've discussed this on a laugh myself. I thought it was inappropriate. I am not religious, but I did grow up Christian, Pentecostal specifically, Kojic ethnicity, if you will. But I say that to say I know what regard that symbolism holds and with what reverence it is practiced in those circles who observe the Last Supper and the foot washing and all of that. And particularly in the context in which this Last Supper happened. So I'm gonna explain it when in the reunion. So Fumi was being fake because she felt like it wasn't appropriate and said so in the confessional, but didn't say so at the table or with the people or even at the event. Fumi claims that no girl, I didn't call Stormy. She already know how I feel. And Tiffany asked Stormy, and what did she say when she called? And of course, Stormy is being dismissive to Tiffany and deflective, but want Tiffany to answer her questions. Amazing. Anywho, so they discussed how indirect it was, and Tiffany called it out. And Tiffany even called it out at the table, asking Stormy, like, how does this even correlate? And do you know what it means? And I guess Tiffany went along with it for the sake of not being consistently the one who's the one with contention. But anywho, Stormy was called out about it. And when Stormy is called out about it, both on the couch by Tiffany, she said, look, I thought it was inappropriate because Carlos asked what you felt inappropriate, sacrilege, heretic. You know what I'm saying? And so Snorri goes onto her loving marriage, Huntsville soliloquy. She didn't address directly at first the question about how the Last Supper was performed. Because Tiffany said, I thought it was performative. And me too. Me too. Me too. I thought that was the most exact and precise word to say for it. It was performative. And it was and this is my point in its performativeness. In it being performative, if she meant it how it is in the biblical sense or how it's regarded as a collective understanding of the Last Supper, she positioned herself as Jesus and all the minions as her disciples if she knew what she was doing. Now, if she was just doing it for the sake of it sound good, then she validates what Tiffany says and it's performative. So with that being said is Tiffany calls it out. And Tiffany and Stormy, that's why she didn't call it out. Oh yeah, so they asked Fumi if you felt like Tiffany felt, then why you ain't, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, well, I felt like the moment was for Tiffany and Stormy. What? Anywho, so Stormy was called out. I addressed, she went on that little Love and Marriage Huntsville speech. She won't address Tiffany about and then she gives this last performance, Last Supper. Tiffany said it's a performance, despite feeling they've went, what did it say? Despite the feelings. Oh yeah, okay. So when finally called out and addressing what happened about her sacrilege and how, like I said, if it's not performative, then you knew what the fuck you was doing and you were being sacrilege in a way that was positioning yourself as their saviors and your disciples. And in doing that, either way, how say you? What say you? And instead of addressing that head on, she goes, I can understand how people can misunderstand my intentions because of their religion and how they feel now that I have the better understanding. And I believe she always has some sort of understanding because when she first brought it up to Courtney, she didn't say, Courtney ain't say nothing. And then she brought it up again. She go, you know what that mean, Courtney? When she brought up, I'm gonna have a last supper for the girls. And Courtney said, didn't say nothing. And she was like, you know what that mean, right? And Courtney was like, yeah, I know what it mean. So y'all acknowledge that it had some deeper meaning. And then when asked about it by Tiffany, she had some semblance of an understanding of what that scripture meant and how it stood. So being as it stood, not saying you have to be, because I'm not religious, but if this was any other religion, y'all would have better regards for other people's sacraments. But anywho, she goes on that long ass thing, but ultimately lands on. But it turned out to be a good thing because everybody participated and it was good. So, like, girl, that dismisses the greater point of how you toy with the deeper concepts of these people's religion. But anywho, after that, Stormy followed up with that by deflecting and going around the room and being like, I never wanted to speak on that because my girl Kayla, she got it out the mud, like bigging up everybody around the room except Tiffany, which I thought was fucked up because like in any other reunion, everybody gets some type of acknowledgement when you go around the reunion to wrap it up. And the way Stormy handled that, like Stormy is calculating like a motherfucker, and I see it. Stormy don't play checkers. That's why Melody was frustrated with Stormy. I want to see Stormy and Melody on the show again together because the way she deflected that whole accountability, the way she patronized the whole Last Supper set up and then went around the room and took control from Carlos by going around the room and bigging up everybody one on one and ending on Amber and telling Amber how I'm mad that me going at your friend, put you in between us, and I missed out on your journey, and whoop de whoop de whoop. You did that. She didn't do that. And then she deflected to make it about, and it like crescendo on the moment of them hugging and acting like that was the problem. No, the problem was Stormy made a mountain out of a molehill. Was Tiffany a lame? Was the joke in poor taste? Was it all of that? Hell fucking yeah. What, but could it been addressed and nipped in the bud earlier by a more mature party? Yes, your money don't make you fucking mature. And though Tiffany being redundant about the money aspect, and it does ring like when you talking about other people's ends, because in this society it's called pocket watching by default, it do ring like a hater to some ears. She not all the way wrong once she brought it to my attention. Because at first I ain't think nothing of it. But once Tiffany brought it up, it made sense like, Your minions are making concessions for shit they not making concessions for Tiffany with. And if all things consistent, why y'all not making these concessions? Because it ain't like Tiffany did no harm to nobody other than Stormy. What else did she do? And Tafumi, and they said they handled they shit and handled quite promptly before she left to go to Fashion Week. So what the fuck was Stormy talking about by not being able to handle it when she was going about her live stream? I had a celebrity and $1 million, and I'm not saying don't go get the riches, but if that's your default excuse to why you can't handle smoothing things over with your fellow man and leave in this that could have been not left for infection, then you look negligible in it. Money don't make that not negligible because you left that for infection to grow to be a bigger harm than what it was. Could have just nipped it in the bud. Girl, you out of order for talking about mopping. I understand it's funny to you, but it ain't funny to me. Can we, see where I'm coming from? Oh, girl, yeah. And you can see old girl was open to it because at the civil rights, she did apologize. But the thing about that apology, it didn't happen in front of everybody. It only happened in front of Chanel and the other girl and Tiffany friend. And so it's the framing of reality TV and the way Stormy is positioned as in charge of the girls. They had a conversation about that, like, oh, how we her minions. And then Tiffany was like, cause y'all want to stay on this show. And y'all think Stormy is the gatekeeper to this show. So y'all bowing at her feet. And I believe they thought it was gonna be by way of her money. Cause that's not the way they all are indebted. Amber is, but not the rest of them. And in so much, Amber kind of slid past admitting it by omission because Carlos goes, do you feel indebted to Stormy, Amber? And she goes, not by way of this show. I don't feel indebted to Stormy to be on this show. I think we all pull our way. Like, that's a major deflection because the real you do feel indebted in some capacity, but not in the capacity that y'all have deflected to in settling on being on the show. And that's cool in the game, but to the ethos, tell the future, I said so.